So with the new regime of, laws and things coming in every day, with, drug tests and things like that, one thing that's also on the rise today is cryptocurrency. And people think there's a lot of speculation that cryptocurrency will essentially be the new currency for the future. Now, I've been paying attention to cryptocurrency. There's things like Ethereum, Cardano, other cryptocurrencies that are relatively known that people are saying will be the new infrastructure for the background of society. But it's kind of interesting to see as the whole crypto debate is going on. So I was curious to hear what y'all thought about it.
To me, I think it's interesting. I did see AMC put out a tweet earlier this week, earlier last week about actually allowing Dogecoin
Those.
as a way of currency just to go buy film, go to the movie theaters. So I mean, I think it has its place. I just think it's the biggest concern is about regulation and how to actually regulate this coin. I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to cryptocurrency, where it will retire the dollar at some point, which I wouldn't be surprised because I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but anytime you go shopping today, you have more often than not, stores are saying either you have to have exact change or you need to pay with a card.
I know
So
that.
yeah, like there's a lot of big box stores, I'll say, just across the board, retail in different areas of retail and even like grocery stores where people are saying, yo, either you have to have exact change because there's a coin shortage.
I did hear about that. What's going on with that?
It's been something that's been happening for a while, I think, since kind of somewhat near the beginning of the pandemic, where I guess because there's so many people now that are home, because a lot of times everybody's always working. So only a handful of people are really using cash. But now that we're living in a time where there's a pandemic, cash is pretty much king to some people. People are using too much cash, or there's just not an influx of coins, long story short.
Right.
So they're not able to get as many coins out. So which kind of goes to that whole that thought process they've had for probably a decade of retiring the penny. So I can see how this could be a transition. My biggest concern is just how to regulate it, because my understanding of cryptocurrency is every time you make an exchange, you have to pay tax for it. And that's my only issue, because then it's not the equivalent to a dollar. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure the ins and outs of the situation when it comes to being taxed on the actual exchanges with cryptocurrency, but I do know that it's interesting to see what's going on. I know that they do have different cryptocurrencies that are supposed to be US dollar stand-ins and different things for different fiat currencies. So it's kind of interesting to see as to how it's all playing out. I think that if that does happen, that'll be like way down the line. I do know certain cryptocurrencies have a little bit more stability than the dollar just because of it being so inflationary. But like at the same point in time, to say that we're going to move from the US dollar to essentially another form of currency in the form of the US dollar, because all you would figure that a lot of other societies and whatnot and currencies from different places would have to switch as well. Which you already saw El Salvador, they're accepting Bitcoin for different transactions and whatnot. So I mean, like it's definitely some type of shift, but I'm not sure where it's going.
If people monitor how currency has been used digitally for a while in other countries, I think it won't be it. It's just a regulation part, because I believe in Nigeria, and I saw this documentary a couple years ago. But long story short, like with over there, they use Nokia phones. So pretty much their currency is through text messages. So like I text you to get for currency, or even like I was looking at some wholesale spots out in China, and a lot of I forget, I'm not sure if it's called WePay or something like that, but there's like, it's a digital currency that you're using, but you're using it in place of cash, right? So it's really the regulation, like like you said, I think in terms of it replacing the US dollar, it's going to be, I think that is going to take a time, because it's going to take a while for countries to adjust to that.
Exactly.
But I think looking at other countries, it is very well possible that if you put, I think if anything, I wouldn't be surprised. Let me ask you this: how far do you think it is? How far fetched do you think it would be if they just come up with a global standard currency?
It's a
Kathleen,
one
do
world
you?
order. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Kathleen. You're good.
It seems like a one world order if they do,
Mm.
if it's gonna be worldwide. And also I have invested in cryptocurrency, but I just also feel like there's a divide when it comes to cryptocurrency. There's the people who are really familiar with it and then the people who aren't. I mean, that's with all things.
Right.
And I just feel like the people who are familiar with it have a tendency to like shove the idea of cryptocurrency down people's throats.
Okay.
Like,
No, I see that sometimes. You're not lying.
and
Yeah.
I'm
Nah.
just like, either I'm gonna do it or I'm not. Like, and then they just like, oh, well, you could become a millionaire if you use I forgot. Let me check this app. It's on my phone.
Coinbase.
It's Coinbase. Yeah, you know, I deleted it. That's how irrelevant it is. No offense.
Oh, wow.
You're just
I
not
just-
interested in it like that. It's not your
I'm
thing.
not. I mean, I gave it a chance. I saw the potential. There's a lot of work that has to be put into it, and I'm all about work, but
Right.
it's just, I just feel like people, it is convenient, but the way we don't know what direction it's going in because like the average person just uses their Apple Pay to pay for everything in their card. And then people have a, you know, it's whatchamacallit, an opinion about using Apple Pay, like, oh, it's you're bound to get scammed if you use Apple Pay. Freaking cryptocurrency to me is just like, that's a way I can get scammed too. Shoot.
Well, the way I see it is there's two things that you got to follow in order to know where things are going with cryptocurrency, and that's big business and the government. And depending on how they feel about cryptocurrency is where everybody else is going to go, because what they say is what we're going to have to do. So if the government decides to take on like Tether and they say like, hey, that's the US dollar equivalent, that's the US dollar equivalent. And we're not going to say no. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like at the end of the day, there's a lot of big businesses in the back end making deals with these cryptocurrency places. There was a report 2 weeks ago, it was a false report, but it said that Walmart had accepted Litecoin as a form of currency. And
I've seen that. Yeah.
the price for Litecoin shot up for like 2 hours. And then once they said, hey, this was a lie, it shot right back down. But all it's going to take is essentially for somebody to say, hey, this is a go. And we'll see where things are going to go.
Yeah, but see, I think that's to me, that's the issue, right? Because things like that, like what having a finance background, I also understand like there's a thing called pumping and dumping, right? And typically that for listeners who aren't familiar with the pumping and dumping is typically people take penny stocks, which are typically less than $5, and they buy a big share of it, right? And then what they go out and do is incentivize other people. You can make money if you buy into this stock. The stock price shoots up. They sell their stock. And when they sell it, because it's a bulk share, the price drops. Everybody who bought in helped build the price up. The person who owned the most sold it. And when he sold his or her part, the price drops and everybody else loses money. And this situation is very similar when I think of like false information like that, right? Where imagine, or even like we look at just different people where they've made tweets or have some type of incentive or encouraging others to buy into a coin because they say it may be good. So, I mean, it's very interesting. I do think similar to what Kathleen said, like where you just never know how it can work, especially like when it comes to scamming, because like where I stay at, like the gas station, it has an ATM. Like there's Bitcoin ATMs, right? Or you can pay for your gas with Bitcoin. So it's finding its way in circulation. It's just like you said, like whatever they choose to make the dollar standard is going to be the dollar standard, and we won't have any question in it. It's just a matter of like who is going to be the big business that out of that big three, I would say, that will be our big five, that will actually say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And because as soon as they say that, that's when everybody else will probably fall in line. Because at the end of the day, the dollar rules all to some extent, or influences many, I'll say.
Influences a lot. Kathleen, did you have anything else to say?
That too. I just feel like the direction we're at now, it's crazy because I feel like where I live isn't really, it's like a step back in time. I feel like I'm in the 1980s, and I'm really surprised that there's just a lot of places that do accept Bitcoin as currency, even though, okay, y'all accept this as currency, but y'all don't want to update your TV in your store. Like, let me know. Is this,
Hey, listen, man. It. I wouldn't be surprised if if we end up going through that cycle of like the 80s, to be honest with you, just because during that time, you had like it was just a crazy time, right? So like in the 80s, you always look at all right, have you ever heard any of those stories of like New York back in the 80s?
tell me.
Like so from like stories I've heard of like the 80s and 70s of people that lived during that time, it was just like the Wild West.
I
Like
love the
people were,
Wild West.
yeah, like people were doing check scams or people were doing crimes or people were just living a way freer life, right? So I do think with the pandemic and how it shaped where we're going, I definitely can see how like it looks very similar to like the 80s to some extent. So like, I can
If
definitely
you do have to compare, yeah, I can see that.